The smell of burning flesh clung to him, a phantom limb of horror. Private Thomas Baker stumbled back. The image seared into his brain Sergeant Miller, engulfed in flames, screaming a sound that clawed at the edges of sanity. The attack had been swift, brutal. A German flamethrower, a searing jet of liquid fire, and Miller gone, just like that. Tom's stomach churned, a wave of nausea threatening to overwhelm him. He tasted bile, a metallic tang of fear. The air crackled with the aftershock of the explosion, the acrid smell of gasoline mingling with the sickening sweetness of burning human hair. Tom. Baker, where the hell are you? Corporal Davies' voice, strained and sharp, cut through the haze of shock. Tom didn't respond. He couldn't. His legs felt like lead rooted to the churned earth. He watched Davies approach, his face grim, his eyes scanning the carnage. The battlefield was a canvas of destruction, shattered trees, mangled equipment, and the unmoving forms of men he'd known, laughed with, shared stories with just hours before. Miller's gone, Davies said, his voice flat. We need to move now. Tom stared at the charred remains of his friend, his brother in arms. Miller had been his rock, the one who'd kept him sane through the endless training, the fear-soaked nights, the constant threat of death. Now there was nothing but ash. I can't, Tom whispered, the words catching in his throat. Davies grabbed him by the arm, his grip tight. Baker, snap out of it. We're pinned down. We need every man we can get. Tom shook his head, pulling away. He's gone. I can't do this anymore. What are you talking about? Davies demanded, his eyes narrowing. I'm done, Tom said, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. I'm done with the war, done with the killing, done with watching my friends die. He could feel the panic rising, a suffocating wave of despair. Davies stared at him, disbelief etched on his face. You can't be serious. You're going to desert. Now? Tom didn't answer. He turned and walked away from the carnage, away from the fighting, away from the army. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to get away. The screams of Sergeant Miller echoed in his head, a constant reminder of the horror he was leaving behind. He could feel Davies' eyes on his back, burning with anger and betrayal. Let him think what he wants, Tom thought. He couldn't stay. He wouldn't survive another moment of this. He plunged into the dense forest, the trees offering a sliver of solace, a shield from the madness. He kept running, not knowing where he was going, only knowing he had to escape. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs screamed in protest. Finally, he collapsed at the base of a large oak tree, gasping for air. He was alone. Utterly, terrifyingly alone. He ripped the American flag patch from his shoulder. He threw it to the ground. He had to find somewhere to hide, somewhere safe, somewhere to forget. But could he ever forget the flames? He heard the distant rumble of tanks. The war was still raging. He looked around at the thick undergrowth. He wasn't safe. Not yet. He had to keep moving. He would have to trust someone, but who? He had no idea that his journey had only just begun. He saw a light in the distance. A farmhouse, hope or a trap? He had no choice. He started walking. The smell of burning flesh still haunted him. Chapter 2, Quittez-vous. The old woman's voice was sharp, suspicious. Her eyes, magnified by thick spectacles, scrutinized him from head to toe. She stood framed in the doorway of the farmhouse, a shotgun cradled in her arms. Tom raised his hands, palms open, trying to appear as non-threatening as possible. He hadn't spoken in what felt like days. His voice was raw. I need help, he croaked in broken French. Je suis américaine. I am lost. The woman, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, didn't lower the shotgun. American, here? The Germans are everywhere. I know, Tom said, his voice barely above a whisper. I got separated from my unit. I need shelter. She studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Tom's heart hammered against his ribs. He could feel the sweat trickling down his back, despite the chill in the air. He reeked of fear and desperation. My name is Elodie, she said finally, her voice softening slightly. Come in. But be warned, my son will not be so welcoming. He stepped inside. The warmth of the fire a welcome contrast to the cold dampness of the forest. The farmhouse was small, sparsely furnished but clean and tidy. The scent of wood smoke and freshly baked bread filled the air. Elodie gestured him to a chair by the fireplace. You are a deserter, she said, stating it as a fact. Tom flinched. He didn't deny it. Why? Elodie asked. Why abandon your comrades? He hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. I saw something. Something I couldn't live with. The image of Miller engulfed in flames flashed before his eyes. He swallowed hard, trying to suppress the rising tide of nausea. War is hell, Elodie said, her voice tinged with weariness. I have seen much in my life, but running away does not make it disappear. I know, Tom said, his voice barely audible. But I had to. I couldn't stay there. Not after... He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. After what? A gruff voice demanded. Tom turned to see a man standing in the doorway, his eyes filled with suspicion. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a weathered face and calloused hands. This must be her son, Jean. Jean, be civil, Elodie said sharply. This man is American. He needs our help. Help? Jean scoffed. He is a soldier. He should be fighting, not hiding in our farmhouse. I'm not hiding, Tom said, his voice gaining a little strength. I just need a place to rest, to figure out what to do. And what do you plan to do? Jean asked, his eyes boring into Tom's. Go back and fight? Or stay here and endanger us all? Tom didn't have an answer. He didn't know what he was going to do. Elodie placed a hand on Jean's arm. He's just a boy, Jean. He is scared. We must help him. Jean reluctantly agreed, but his eyes never left Tom. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. You can stay for one night, Jean said, his voice cold. But tomorrow you must leave. We cannot risk our lives for you. Thank you, Tom said, relief washing over him. One night was better than nothing. He would figure something out. Later that night, as he lay on a straw mattress in the barn, he thought about Miller. He wondered if he was a coward for leaving. He closed his eyes and the flames returned, burning brighter than ever. He tasted ash. He smelled death. Sleep offered no escape. He woke with a start. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon. He could hear Jean moving around in the farmhouse. He knew he had to leave. He had to go, but where? He heard footsteps outside the barn. Jean was coming. This was it. He was running out of time. He closed his eyes. Chapter 3. Jean stood in the doorway of the barn, a loaf of bread and a small block of cheese in his hands. Here, he said, tossing the food to Tom. You will need this. Tom caught the bread and cheese, surprised by Jean's unexpected generosity. Thank you, he said, his voice filled with gratitude. Jean shrugged. My mother insisted. She has a soft heart. He paused, his expression hardening. But do not mistake kindness for weakness. I still do not trust you. And if the Germans find you here, I will not hesitate to turn you in. Tom nodded. He understood. He wouldn't blame him. There is a small village about 5 kilometers to the east, Jean said, pointing in the direction. It is called Sainte-Marie. The people there are sympathetic. But be careful. The Germans have spies everywhere. I will, Tom said. He rose to his feet, his body aching from the night spent on the hard straw mattress. He slung his empty rucksack over his shoulder. Good luck, Jean said, his voice surprisingly sincere. You will need it. Tom walked out of the barn and into the early morning light. He took one last look at the farmhouse, at Elodie standing in the doorway, watching him with a mixture of concern and hope. He offered a small wave and then turned and headed east, towards Sainte-Marie. The journey was long and arduous. He stuck to the woods, avoiding the roads, constantly on the lookout for German patrols. He was hungry, tired, and scared. The weight of his desertion pressed heavily on his shoulders. He was a coward, a traitor. He had abandoned his comrades, his country, his duty. He reached Sainte-Marie in the late afternoon. The village was small, consisting of a handful of houses clustered around a church. The atmosphere was somber, the faces of the villagers etched with worry and fear. He felt like an intruder, an outsider. He approached an old woman sitting on a bench outside the church. Excuse me, he said in halting French. Can you help me? I'm American. The woman looked up at him, her eyes filled with suspicion. American? What are you doing here? I need shelter, Tom said. I am lost. The woman studied him for a long moment. Go see Father Dubois, she said finally, pointing to the church. He may be able to help you. Tom thanked her and walked towards the church. He hesitated before knocking on the heavy wooden door. He didn't know what to expect. The door was opened by a tall, thin man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Bonjour, he said. I am Father Dubois. Can I help you? I am American, Tom said. I need help. Father Dubois ushered him inside. The church was dark and quiet. a sanctuary from the chaos of the outside world. "Come," Father Dubois said, leading him to a small room behind the altar. "Tell me your story." Tom sat down and began to speak. He told Father Dubois everything: the horrors of the battlefield, the death of Sergeant Miller, his decision to desert, his journey to Sainte-Marie. He poured out his heart, his guilt, his fear. Father Dubois listened patiently, his eyes filled with compassion. When Tom finished, he sat in silence for a long moment. "You have been through much," Father Dubois said finally, "but you are not a coward. You are a human being, broken and afraid. God will forgive you." Tom looked up at Father Dubois, tears welling up in his eyes. "Do you think so?" "I know so," Father Dubois said. "Now let us see what we can do to help you." Father Dubois arranged for Tom to stay with a family in the village, the Leclercs. They were kind and welcoming, offering him food and shelter. For the first time since deserting, Tom felt a glimmer of hope, but he knew that his safety was only temporary. The Germans were getting closer. He heard whispers of resistance fighters operating in the area. He wondered if he should join them. He saw a familiar face in the village square. Corporal Davies. His heart leaped into his throat. He ducked behind a building. Davies was looking for him. He had to get out of Sainte-Marie now. Chapter 4. Panic seized Tom. Davies here? It was impossible. He pressed himself against the cold stone wall, his breath caught in his throat. He peered cautiously around the corner, confirming his worst fear. Davies was indeed in Sainte-Marie, talking to a group of villagers, his face grim. Tom knew he had to act fast. He couldn't risk being seen. Davies wouldn't hesitate to turn him in. He scanned the area, desperately searching for an escape route. A narrow alleyway offered a potential escape. He slipped into it, moving quickly and quietly, his heart pounding in his chest. He navigated the maze of narrow streets and alleys, his mind racing. He had to warn the Leclercs, tell them he had to leave. He couldn't put them in danger. He reached their house, his hand hovering over the door. He took a deep breath and knocked. Madame Leclerc opened the door, her face etched with surprise. "Tom, what is wrong? You look like you have seen a ghost." "Davies," Tom said, his voice urgent. "Corporal Davies is here." "He's looking for me," Madame Leclerc gasped, her eyes widening in fear. "Davies, but how?" "I don't know," Tom said. "But I have to leave. I can't stay here. I don't want to put you and your family in danger." "Nonsense," Madame Leclerc said firmly. "We will not let them take you. We will hide you." "But it's too dangerous," Tom protested. "If they find me here, we will take that risk," Madame Leclerc said. "We are French. We protect our own." Just then, Monsieur Leclerc entered the room, his face pale. "The Germans are here," he said, his voice trembling. "They are searching the village." Tom's blood ran cold. It was too late. "They were surrounded. Quick," Madame Leclerc said, grabbing Tom's arm. "Follow me." She led him to a hidden cellar beneath the house, a dark and cramped space filled with jars of preserves and potatoes. "Stay here," she whispered. "We will bring you food and water." "Do not make a sound," Tom nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He watched as Madame Leclerc closed the cellar door, plunging him into darkness. He was alone, trapped and terrified. He could hear the sounds of the German soldiers searching the village, their heavy boots echoing on the cobblestone streets, their voices harsh and demanding. He held his breath, praying they wouldn't find him. Hours passed. The sounds of the search faded. Tom remained in the cellar, his body stiff and sore, his mind filled with dread. He didn't know what was happening outside, whether the Germans had left, whether Davies was still looking for him. Finally, he heard the cellar door creak open. Madame Leclerc appeared, her face pale and drawn. "They are gone," she whispered. "But they will be back." "I have to leave," Tom said. "I can't stay here any longer. It's too dangerous. Where will you go?" Madame Leclerc asked, her voice filled with concern. "I don't know," Tom said. "But I can't stay here." Madame Leclerc sighed. "Very well, but take this." She handed him a small map. "It shows the location of a safe house in the forest. It is run by the resistance. They may be able to help you." Tom took the map, his heart filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he said. "You have been so kind." "Be careful," Madame Leclerc said. "The forest is full of dangers," Tom nodded. He knew he had to trust someone, but who? He slipped out of the house and into the darkness. He looked back at the Leclerc's house, his heart filled with sadness. He was leaving behind the only people who had shown him kindness in weeks. He headed towards the forest, the map clutched tightly in his hand. He knew that his journey was far from over. He was still a deserter, still hunted, still alone, but he had a map and a glimmer of hope. As he entered the forest, he heard a twig snap behind him. He whirled around, his hand reaching for his non-existent gun. A figure emerged from the shadows. "Corporal Davies, I found you," Davies said, his voice cold and menacing. Tom knew he was in deep trouble. He tasted fear. Chapter 5. How did you find me? Tom demanded, his voice trembling despite his attempt to sound brave. The forest floor was damp beneath his worn boots. The air hung heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth. Davies smirked. "It wasn't hard. You're not exactly inconspicuous, Baker. Running around like a scared rabbit." Tom clenched his fists, his anger rising to the surface. "I'm not running. I'm trying to survive." "Survive? By deserting your post? By abandoning your comrades?" Davies scoffed. "That's not survival, Baker. That's cowardice." "You don't understand," Tom said, his voice pleading. "You weren't there. You didn't see what happened to Miller." "I saw plenty of men die, Baker," Davies said, his voice hard. "It's war. That's what happens. You don't run away because you saw something unpleasant." "It wasn't just unpleasant," Tom said, his voice cracking. It was hell. I couldn't take it anymore." Davies took a step closer, his eyes narrowing. "You're weak, Baker. You always were. I knew you wouldn't last." Tom flinched. Davies' words stung. He knew there was some truth to them. He had never been as strong or as brave as the other soldiers. "I'm not weak," Tom said, his voice gaining a little strength. I just couldn't do it anymore." "Well, you don't have to worry about it anymore," Davies said, reaching into his pocket, "because I'm taking you back. You're going to face a court-martial, and you're going to pay for your desertion." Davies pulled out a pair of handcuffs. Tom's heart leaped into his throat. He couldn't let Davies take him back. He would rather die than face the shame and humiliation of a court-martial. He looked around, desperately searching for a way out. The forest was dark and dense, offering little cover. He was trapped. "Don't make this difficult, Baker," Davies said, his voice warning. "Just put your hands behind your back." Tom hesitated. He knew he couldn't win. Davies was bigger, stronger, and armed. But he couldn't give up. He had to try. He took a deep breath and lunged at Davies, knocking him off balance. Davies stumbled, dropping the handcuffs. Tom didn't hesitate. He turned and ran, plunging into the darkness of the forest. He could hear Davies cursing behind him, his heavy footsteps pounding on the ground. Tom ran as fast as he could, his lungs burning, his legs aching. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to get away from Davies. He tripped over a root and fell to the ground, his face scraping against the dirt. He scrambled to his feet and kept running, ignoring the pain. He reached a small stream. He waded across it, hoping to throw Davies off his trail. He emerged on the other side, soaked and shivering. He heard a shot ring out behind him. The bullet whizzed past his head, narrowly missing him. Tom dove behind a large tree, his heart pounding in his chest. Davies was shooting at him. He was trying to kill him. Tom knew he couldn't stay there. He had to move. He had to find a way to defend himself. He spotted a fallen branch lying on the ground. He picked it up, his hand tightening around it. It was a poor weapon, but it was better than nothing. He waited, his breath held, listening for Davies' approach. He could hear the rustling of leaves, the snapping of twigs. Davies was getting closer. He gripped the branch tighter, his knuckles white. He knew that this could be the end. He was a deserter, hunted by his own army, alone in a hostile country. But he wasn't going to give up. He was going to fight. He was going to survive. He saw a flash of movement through the trees. Davies was coming. Tom tensed, ready to strike. He took a deep breath. He closed his eyes and he waited. He saw a glint of steel. Davies was aiming. He heard a voice. "Drop your weapon." It wasn't Davies, it was a woman, and she had a gun pointed at Davies's head. Who was she? Chapter 6. The woman's voice, sharp and commanding, sliced through the tension-filled air. Davies froze, his gun still aimed in Tom's direction. He hesitated, his eyes darting between Tom and the woman. "Who are you?" Davies demanded, his voice laced with suspicion. "That is not important," the woman said, her voice unwavering. "What is important is that you drop your weapon now." Davies slowly lowered his gun, his eyes never leaving the woman. He placed the gun on the ground, his hands raised in surrender. "Good," the woman said. "Now step away from the American." Davies reluctantly obeyed. his face contorted with anger and frustration. He glared at Tom, his eyes filled with hatred. "You haven't seen the last of me, Baker," Davies snarled. "I will find you. And when I do, silence," the woman snapped. "Or I will shoot you where you stand." Davies fell silent, his anger simmering beneath the surface. The woman turned her attention to Tom. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice softening slightly. Tom nodded, his body trembling with adrenaline. "Yes," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you. My name is Isabel," the woman said. "I am with the Resistance." The word filled Tom with a mixture of hope and fear. He had heard whispers of the Resistance, of their fight against the German occupation, but he also knew that they were a dangerous group, operating in the shadows, constantly at risk of being captured or killed. "I am Tom," he said. "Tom Baker, I'm a deserter." Isabel's expression didn't change. "I know," she said. "We have been watching you." Tom was taken aback. "Watching me? Why?" "We need your help," Isabel said. "We have a mission, and we believe you are the man for the job." Tom stared at her, disbelief etched on his face. "You want my help? I'm a deserter. I'm a coward." "We don't care about that," Isabel said. "We care about your skills. You are a soldier. You know how to fight. And we need soldiers." Tom hesitated. He didn't know if he could trust her. He had been betrayed before. But he also knew that he had nothing to lose. He was a wanted man, hunted by his own army. Joining the Resistance might be his only chance for redemption. "What kind of mission?" he asked. "It is dangerous," Isabel said. "Very dangerous. But it is also important. It could help turn the tide of the war." "Tell me about it," Tom said, his curiosity piqued. Isabel led him deeper into the forest, to a hidden clearing where a small group of men and women were gathered. They were a ragtag bunch, armed with a motley collection of weapons, but their eyes burned with a fierce determination. Isabel introduced Tom to the leader of the resistance cell, a grizzled old man named Henri. Henri studied Tom for a long moment, his eyes filled with skepticism. "You are a deserter," Henri said, his voice gruff. "Why should we trust you?" "I want to help," Tom said. "I want to do something to make up for what I've done." Henri considered his words. "Very well," he said finally. "We will give you a chance. But if you betray us, we will kill you." Tom nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He had made his decision. He was joining the resistance. He looked at Isabel, her face determined. "What's the mission?" he asked. Isabel pointed to a map spread out on the ground. "The Germans are building a new radar station," she said. "It is located in a small village called It is codenamed Raven's Nest. It is heavily guarded, but we believe we can destroy it." "How?" Tom asked. "We have a plan," Isabel said, "but we need someone who knows how to use explosives. Someone who is not afraid to take risks." She looked at Tom. "Are you that man?" He thought of Miller. Of the flames, he took a deep breath. "Yes," he said, "I am." He had to do this. He had to stop Raven's Nest. He had to redeem himself, but first he had to survive. He heard the sound of approaching vehicles, German trucks. "We have to move." Isabel shouted. The trucks were getting closer. They were surrounded. Chapter 7. The urgency in Isabel's voice jolted Tom into action. The rumble of the approaching German trucks grew louder, closer. There was no time to waste. "Everyone move, now!" Henri barked, his voice filled with authority. The resistance fighters scattered, disappearing into the dense undergrowth. Isabel grabbed Tom's arm. "Come on, this way!" She led him through the forest, dodging trees and leaping over fallen logs. The sound of the trucks was deafening now. Tom could hear the shouts of the German soldiers, their voices harsh and demanding. They reached a small clearing. Isabel pointed to a hidden tunnel concealed beneath a pile of leaves. "This is it," she said. "Hurry!" Tom hesitated. The tunnel looked dark and claustrophobic, but he knew they had no choice. They had to hide. He crawled into the tunnel, followed by Isabel. The tunnel was narrow and cramped, barely wide enough for them to squeeze through. The air was thick and musty, filled with the smell of damp earth. They crawled for what seemed like an eternity, their hands and knees scraping against the rough walls of the tunnel. Finally, they reached the end. Isabel pushed open a hidden door, revealing a small underground chamber. They scrambled inside, collapsing on the dirt floor, gasping for air. The chamber was small and dimly lit. illuminated by a single flickering candle. It was sparsely furnished with a few wooden crates and a pile of blankets. "We're safe here," Isabel said, her voice barely above a whisper. "For now." Tom looked around the chamber, his mind racing. They were trapped underground, surrounded by German soldiers. He didn't know how long they could stay hidden. "What about the others?" he asked. "Did they make it?" Isabel nodded. "Most of them. A few were captured. But they will not talk." Tom felt a pang of guilt. He was responsible for this. If he hadn't deserted, none of this would have happened. "This is my fault," he said, his voice filled with remorse. "If I hadn't come here, don't blame yourself," Isabel said. "This is war. Bad things happen. We all make choices. You made yours. Now we have to focus on surviving." Tom looked at Isabel, her face determined. He was amazed by her strength, her courage. She was a true patriot, willing to risk her life for her country. "What do we do now?" he asked. "We wait," Isabel said. "We wait for the Germans to leave. Then we regroup, and we continue our mission." They sat in silence for a long time, listening to the sounds of the German soldiers searching the forest above them. Tom could feel the tension building, the fear tightening its grip on his heart. He thought about the mission, about Raven's Nest. He knew it was a long shot, a suicide mission. But he was determined to do it. He had to do something to make up for his past mistakes. He looked at Isabel. "Tell me about Raven's Nest," he said. Isabel took a deep breath and began to speak. She explained the layout of the radar station, the location of the guards, the weaknesses in the security. She had gathered a lot of information. "But it wasn't enough. We need more details," Isabel said. "We need someone on the inside, someone who can tell us exactly where the explosives need to be placed." Tom nodded. He understood. "They needed an informant. Do you have anyone in mind?" he asked. Isabel hesitated. "There is one person," she said, "but he is unreliable. He is a collaborator. He works for the Germans." Tom stared at her, disbelief etched on his face. "You want to trust a collaborator?" "We have no choice," Isabel said. "He is our only hope." "Who is he?" Tom asked. "His name is Pierre," Isabel said. "He is the mayor of Raven's Nest." "The mayor?" "A collaborator." This was getting more complicated by the minute. He thought of Miller. He tasted ash. He smelled fear. He heard footsteps approaching the chamber. German footsteps. They were coming for them. Chapter 8. The heavy thud of German boots echoed through the earth, growing louder with each passing second. Tom's breath hitched. He exchanged a panicked glance with Isabel. Their hiding place had been compromised. "They know we're here," Tom whispered, his voice strained. Isabel nodded grimly. "We have to fight our way out." She reached for a hidden compartment in the wall, revealing 2 Sten guns. She handed one to Tom. The cold steel felt reassuring in his trembling hands. He hadn't held a weapon in what felt like an eternity. "Do you know how to use one of these?" Isabel asked, her eyes scanning the tunnel entrance. "I'm an American soldier," Tom replied, his voice regaining a sliver of confidence. "I know how to use a gun." The footsteps were right outside the chamber now. Tom could hear the guttural voices of the German soldiers, their commands sharp and menacing. "Ready?" Isabel asked, her finger on the trigger. Tom nodded, his heart pounding against his ribs. He was ready. He was going to fight. He was going to survive. The door to the chamber burst open, and 2 German soldiers stormed inside, their guns raised. Isabel and Tom opened fire, unleashing a hail of bullets. The soldiers were caught off guard, their bodies riddled with bullets. They crumpled to the ground, dead before they hit the floor. "Come on!" Isabel shouted, grabbing Tom's arm. "We have to get out of here!" They burst out of the chamber and into the tunnel, running as fast as they could. More German soldiers were waiting for them, blocking their escape. A fierce firefight erupted in the narrow tunnel. Bullets whizzed past Tom's head, ricocheting off the walls. He fired back, taking down 2 more soldiers. Isabel was fighting beside him, her face a mask of determination. She was a skilled fighter, moving with agility and precision. They reached the end of the tunnel and emerged into the forest, blinking in the sunlight. The forest was swarming with German soldiers. They were surrounded. "We have to split up," Isabel shouted. "It's our only chance." Tom hesitated. He didn't want to leave her. But he knew she was right. They couldn't survive if they stayed together. "Go!" Isabel yelled, pushing him forward. "I'll create a diversion." Tom ran. dodging trees and leaping over fallen logs. He could hear the sounds of gunfire behind him, Isabel drawing the Germans away. He didn't know if she would survive, but he had to trust her. He had to focus on getting away. He reached a small clearing. He stopped, catching his breath, his body aching with exhaustion. He was alone again. He looked back in the direction of the tunnel. He could still hear the sounds of gunfire, but they were fading. He didn't know what had happened to Isabel. He knew he had to keep moving. He had to reach Raven's Nest. He had to destroy the radar station. He looked at the map Isabel had given him. He had to find Pierre, the mayor. He had to convince him to help them. He set off towards Raven's Nest, his heart filled with determination. He reached the village in the late afternoon. It was a small, quiet village, seemingly untouched by the war. But Tom knew that beneath the surface, things were not as they seemed. He entered the village square. He saw a man standing in front of the town hall. He was wearing a suit and tie. He looked like a politician. It had to be Pierre, the mayor. Tom approached him. "Are you Pierre?" he asked. The man turned around. He looked at Tom with suspicion. "Who are you?" he asked. "I need your help," Tom said. "I know about the radar station." Pierre's eyes widened. He grabbed Tom's arm and pulled him inside the town hall. "Come with me," he said, his voice trembling. "We need to talk." They entered a small office. Pierre closed the door and locked it. "How do you know about the radar station?" he asked. "I'm with the resistance," Tom said. "We need your help to destroy it." Pierre stared at him, disbelief etched on his face. "You're crazy," he said. "I can't help you." "I work for the Germans, but Isabel said—" Tom began. "Isabel is wrong," Pierre interrupted. "I can't risk my life for you. I have a family to protect." Tom's heart sank. He had come so far, risked so much, and now it was all for nothing. He thought of Miller. He tasted ash, he saw flames, he was about to give up. Then he noticed something on Pierre's desk. A photograph of Pierre and a young woman in an American uniform. A WAC. "Who is she?" Tom asked, his voice trembling. Pierre's face paled. "She's my daughter," he said, his voice barely audible. "She's fighting for the Americans," Tom said. "Oh, you're helping the Germans." Pierre looked down, shame etched on his face. "I had no choice," he said. "They threatened to kill my family." "But you can help us," Tom said. "You can save your daughter's country. You can redeem yourself." Pierre looked up at Tom, his eyes filled with hope. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. Chapter 9. The weight of Pierre's confession hung heavy in the air. Tom studied the mayor's face, searching for any sign of deception.